Carole Robinson. Welcome to this edition of County Happenings, where we talk with the county mayor about what's going on in the county.
How are you today?
I'm doing good, Mr. Rogers Anderson. How you doing?
I'm telling you, it is a busy time in Williamson County.
Yeah, well, it always is now. There is just no break.
It is amazing. I saw some figures yesterday from the chamber, and they are now reporting that we've got a little over 226,000 people. Now, I don't know how they get to that, which leads me into the next conversation.
Which is the census.
Which is the census, which Joe Horn's heading that up again. We had a recent TV show in which we kind of spearheaded 3 different people with Joe and talking about the upcoming census. You know, the census is required by Congress.
Right.
And it actually has to be put in place on April the 1st, 2020. That's about a year away. So we're having our kickoff meetings, and the
It's
staff.
hard to believe that it's something that takes a year to plan or more.
It really takes longer than that.
Yeah.
But it is required by Congress, and last time we did this was in 2010. We had 183,000 people. So if the chamber and the economic development piece is correct, and we're at 226, 227, I've already made a prediction. I think we'll see better than 230,000 people at the 2020 census.
Which you had predicted a while back by 2025 we get 250, and
We're
you're
right
on
on
target.
those numbers.
Yep.
So one of the things I would like to talk to everyone about on the census, if you're watching this show, and to your neighbors, number one, the federal government does give us some money working through Joe Horn. I would ask the staff if they would put that email address or the phone number in which we're looking for workers. And we only do this every 10 years. Now, we did do a special census back in the mid-90s, but it's all based upon nose counts, all based about numbers of people in your community. And why is that so important? Well, the first reason is it's how they allocate dollars and cents to cities and unincorporated parts of your county. It also goes into block.
When you say they, you mean the federal government?
Federal and state government. Okay. The next big thing, which is more of a political issue, which most people don't really care about, but is how are the lines drawn between your senatorial, your congressional line, and even down to the county commission and school boards, and all of those lines are based on geographic number, because you're not allowed to have more than 5% on either side of the number. So if the line is here, this side has to be within 5% of this line and 5% of this line. So we have 12 different civil districts. And so all of those have to match up, and that goes back to Boston Tea Party, that you can't have representation.
They want equal representation.
That's right. That's right. So I kind of said that backwards, didn't I? So when you think about it, it has the bullet point number one being distribution of funds that come from the state and from the feds on how that money is sent down based on the population. It's already your money. It's already my money. And if we don't get it correct, if we don't get it done the right way, then some other community will just get our money, or worse than that, it'll stay wherever it is and be used in some other faction. So it is, we beg, and we really do ask people to report the people in their household. And it's a little bit, it's a short form, it's a little longer than me making it out to be, but it can be done online. It can, we still do the old way, although it's not near as effective on phone calls, because nobody has a phone anymore. It's on a cell phone.
And nobody wants to answer their phone.
And nobody
anymore.
wants to answer when it comes up, Williamson County government or whatever. Yeah. So we're in that stages of how do we gather that information. The city of Franklin has done 2. And they do special census during the 10-year decades, and each one of those results. Eric Stuckey said in our interview that for them it's about $100,000. So if it cost them about $80,000 to $100,000 to do, they picked up 3,000 people. So that's $300,000 more from that point on. that you always get. Well, $300,000 is a lot of money.
Right.
That goes in, and it helps to hold your property taxes down. And it's already your money, you just have to do a justification for it.
It's kind of a funny way of getting your money back, but.
Interesting story, of course, I know you write for the paper. We had Rick Warwick talking about what is his role from a historical preservation side and genealogy, which are the two most popular things that go on today, that the data that is received, the information is really not that proprietary, or personal, but that information is received during the 2020 census will not be released for 72 years. And so the 19...
Oh, the personal information.
All the information.
Yeah,
So
because they have to wait until you possibly are dead.
So he was working off from 1930 census, and he said, you wouldn't think that's important, but in Williamson County back then, and we used the case of Roper's Knob, which was Roper's Knobs were tenants. They weren't the owners of the land. But what made it so important during that period of time, that the tenants of the land, the lady of the house committed suicide, and it was apparently a very big thing back in that era. And so then it got the name Roper's Knob, but it has nothing to do with the owner of the land. It was the highest point. In fact, the owners of the lands were the Perkins.
Yeah.
And the Perkins had a house there they went to. They lived here in downtown Franklin, and they went to Roper's Knob. Now, think about that. That's off of Eddie Lane.
All the way to Roper's Knob.
All the way to Roper's Knob, which is probably 2 miles.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they crossed the Harpeth. I don't know anything about all that. But all that information was released during the 30s. And so it's interesting to me, what do you mean you can't release it? Well, there's a lot of data. There's a lot of information there. And oftentimes during that period of time, the male of the household was always identified, and if he was deceased, it was usually the eldest female, and the only way you could pick up tenants were if you just built in to the census block. And so it's kind of fascinating to think about all that, because I'm not historical like Rick Warwick is.
Oh,
he comes out.
He rattles them off the top of his head.
But I just thought that was so intriguing to me. So, make this a long story short, it is about money coming back to the cities and counties that holds your property taxes down. It's about block grants. It's about in the Franklin area, which is some of the hardest data to extract because socioeconomics and how do you reach out to them. And people scared to do it. They just don't want to give that information out today.
They don't want to. Yeah, they don't want the government to have more information than.
That's correct. But that information of the nose count, the head count, is so important for money coming back into your community for so many of these programs. It's also very important to us in county government to be able to say, okay, we're getting X amount of dollars, and that's an increase. We should all see an increase in Williamson County because of the growth of our community.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know it's grown.
But now it's, we want to get the correct amount or as close to it as we possibly can.
Well, and for anybody who is looking for just something fun to do, I've been one of those census workers. Yeah, back in the 90s and the early, I think when we did the mid-90s and when we did the 2000 census, walked the streets and had to actually go into homes and count the heads, make sure there were people living at this mailbox.
It's I've never done that, but I've heard people say it's interesting work.
It is, and you get to meet your neighbors.
You get to meet your neighbors, and so if you're watching this show, we need your help.
Yeah.
And it's a year away, and we've got to gather that information. We had about an 82%. I think that's what they said this morning. 82%. At the last census in 22, which meant we left 18% of the money on the table.
Wow.
Whatever that amount of money is, if it's $1, that's 18 cents on the dollar.
In a population growing like ours, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And it is used for data with TDOP. It's used for data for federal highway information. Because even though we have representation in Washington and Nashville, the people that make those decisions are using that census data material down there. And sometimes we get a little carried away at our numbers. And, if it's not on a piece of paper, then
Yeah.
somebody's going to have
You
to
say, what do you
adjust
mean
that.
you're growing? It only says this.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway,
Yeah.
we'd appreciate people calling in.
And yeah, contact Joe Holmes.
Budget time's another thing we're going on at this time of year. As you know and remember, we report that the county commission meets 9 times a year. We do not meet during the month of April. Why? Because March and April are our budget-focused, laser-focused times, going through all of the budgets, all of the numbers, including schools. They'll present their budget to the budget committee and eventually roll forward to the county commission. We don't meet in August, just
That's to
tradition,
recuperate.
I guess, and that needed. And then we don't meet in December. There are other county commission groups that I have the opportunity to work with other mayors, and some of them meet 10 times a year, some meet 9, and there's a couple that meet every month of the year. But we try to, if you have a meeting, you will have things to vote on.
Right.
So if you can just pack them all in, I know the TV crew likes it that way. They just go 9 times from 7 to 9 or 10 o'clock, and if you had them every time, they'd still go to 7 to 9.
Exactly.
People
You're gonna find
expand
things,
the time of talking to fill the agenda.
And nowadays, they like to hear themselves talk.
Well, I'm not going there. I could be accused of that.
Now, what are some of the parameters for the budget?
Budget?
And some of the areas that you predict may have some
Okay.
issues?
So as you have indicated many times, and even today, growth has a factor in everything we do. It affects us from our landfill, from receiving more trash, to our jails and a higher population, to our juvenile court and a higher number of juvenile cases for our juvenile clients, to our courtrooms, to our highway department, to our sheriff's department. All points are hit. So this year we've asked everyone to do a status quo on the budgets that they have, the operational side. Now there's some automatic increases built in. The state has announced, they haven't voted on it, but the state has announced they're going to go for a 2%, and we're going for a 3%. That's not stacked. That's if the state gives 2%.
You give 1%.
The 3 is the maximum. It'll be a 1% more for those that get state dollars, and we do get
But there are some that don't get state dollars.
that is correct. And then they get the full 3. So we've asked for a 3%. Other than that, that's to keep up with the salary pace that is occurring here in Williamson County. Over the last couple of years, we have lost a lot of good employees, and we're not able to hire as the employees. Just about every place you go into anymore in the county, whether it's city or county, there's a help wanted sign. And so we're struggling with that too in the jobs that we offer, and particularly in those part-time jobs. We will have 400 to 600 part-time jobs. And so if you're ever interested in part-time for us is around 25 hours and under. We open our Parks and Rec, for an example, most of them at 5 o'clock in the morning, 1 or 2 at 4. We have lots of part-time employment needs within the Parks and Rec. We have lots of part-time needs and other functions that we do from time to time. You don't think about it, but the convenience centers that we run.
Yeah.
We have to provide that service, and those facilities are open every day except 6 holidays. I think that's correct. I know there's Easter and Christmas and New Year's Day, Labor Day, and I think there's 1, maybe 2 more that we are not open. But those are staffed with part-time men and women at these half a dozen convenience centers we have. So that takes a lot of people. Majority of those men and women that work are retired, and they're just wanting a little extra money or to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Same thing in Parks and Rec. We have a lot of people that want to go to work. I'm an early riser. I get up at 5, so someday when I quit working, I may want to do a part-time job that gets me up in the morning and kind of gets me going, gets the blood running through your veins, and do that from 5 to 7 or 5 to 9.
And then you can come home and you still got the day.
You still got the day, and you get to meet people.
Yeah.
And you're not just sitting on the back porch watching the sun go up. But now, if that's what you enjoy,
Yeah.
that's fine too. So we have needs at all of our parks and rec, and summertime,
I was
we
gonna
up
say,
at
summertime you
another
need-
400
yeah.
people, from swimming classes, swimming lessons, all the different classes
Yeah.
that we offer. So there's lots of opportunity for part-time and seasonal work. You just have no idea. And that's really cheaper on county dollars, because you don't have to pay health insurance benefits. You don't have to pay a lot of the benefits because you're not a full-time person.
Right.
So one of the things we've asked for in the budget is a 3%. We keep all the operationals the same, except for those areas that require us to go up. Contracts are a big thing. Your cell phone, we have a lot of contracts with cellular, and they go up, and so we have to increase them. The biggest cost in automatically are our software program contracts. All the software we run from the jails to the clerk's office with the car takes, all of those requirements, those maintenance contracts every year, you have to, it's just the IT
Yeah.
world we live in, and we don't really control that. We've got plenty of IT men and women that keep the operation going, but the actual software to use that contract is a big expense every year. But we couldn't do government without it.
No, no.
And then the traditional things that we have sent out to all of our elected, appointed, and department heads. Any new people, you'll have to write out what the request is, what they're going to be doing, the estimated entry level of salary. And so far,
And this is new full-time.
new full-time people, not part-time. So all new people. We normally have between 30 to 50 new requests every year. Most of those over the last 5 years have been in the sheriff's department. Then they'll go to a human resources committee. Then they'll get my signature off on what do I think. And normally for the last several years, we've approved somewhere between 15 and 20 new people, depending on the need, and of course, always if you can afford it. I suspect this year, just preliminary from what I'm hearing, probably be our lowest number of new employees needed. Technology has helped us out in that area a great deal, except over in the school side. They normally, generally speaking, for new teachers and expansions, if there's a new school opened up, you'll see a thrust, but they always have between 150 to 250 new teachers a year. Now, some of those are attrition, retirement.
Right.
Sometimes they move.
Not all of them are new added.
That's right, but they're new faces. New added, you'll see anytime we open up a new school or school's about to open. We have opened one school in the last year, and so for this year, we don't have any coming online. From the July the 1st through June of 2020, there are no new schools coming online. Now,
After that.
After that, it's a different ballgame. That's right. We've got an elementary school that's supposed to be opened up on Goosey Hill Road. And then, of course, they're expanding the wings and footprint of Page Middle, and a couple of other schools that require different teachers. So,
Who'd have thunk that Page would ever have needed to be expanded? And now this is what, the third expansion?
maybe the fourth,
Maybe the
but we've
fourth, yeah.
added things like an auditorium and
Right.
things like that. That school was built 40 years ago, I guess now, and it was kind of built out in the middle
Of
on
nowhere.
Arnold Road, nowhere, and it was to take up the slack from the old College Grove and the Bethesda
Right.
area. So they kind of put it in the middle by Arnold Road, And in those early days, you didn't have many people.
No, it was the Fairview and Page. They were both out in the middle of nowhere.
Out in the
and
middle of nowhere. Not true
graduating
anymore.
classes were under 100 kids. And
So we have 48 schools now.
48 schools.
And
oh my
so
Lord.
we average
I
building.
remember when we had 13.
Yes, and so we average building 1 to 1.5 a year over the last 20 years. Our population numbers each year have been between 12 and 1,500 new children after graduation every year. So, it is the fastest growing population is 0 to 18, I think, might be 19. And the second largest population in our county.
65 and older?
65 and older. I think it's actually 64, but it's interesting to me of the people I see in the community at church or when I'm giving talks that they've been here 2 years, 5 years. You go over to West Haven, it's just packed
Yeah.
with a lot of...
And still building.
And still building with parents moving in that they don't want to be next door, but they want to be close to the
They
door.
want to see those grandbabies more
They
than
want
once
to
a
see those
year.
grandbabies. And I get that with you and me having grandchildren.
Oh, yeah.
6 of my 9 live right here in the county, and I love it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be next door.
No,
to
no,
them.
I don't want to. No.
I don't want to babysit every day or every evening. So that's the second fastest growing area of our community. So
And
and
plus,
you can
so
see it.
many of them, they come to visit and they just fall in love with this area.
Yeah.
And they don't
Well,
want
it's got all the qualities of life that
Yeah.
you like. It's pretty. It's got 4 season change. Although this year we can add one more, rain.
Yeah.
That's a season change now for this year. It offers good health care, Williamson Medical Center,
friendly.
or you can get
and
into Nashville. It's
Yeah.
friendly.
There's
Probably
always
the
something to do.
weakling, always something to do.
Yeah.
Every night there's something. Climates are good. Crime rates are low in our cities and our counties. I think the negative that if for our seniors, so long as they're mobile, being able to drive is there's no problem other than just waiting in traffic, but is the transit system.
Yeah, we
the
don't have public
transport-
transportation.
Public transportation. We don't have now. There are church groups that provide a lot of that, and there are
And
some.
the rec center provides.
And the rec center provide, but not that daily trip to the hospital or to
The grocery
have your
store,
teeth
yeah.
worked on, or my children are telling me I need to start thinking about having my hearing checked, and I've told them for years that I've had selected hearing.
Yeah.
And they said, no, Dad, when we come into your house now, we notice the television's up a little. So I purposely, when they drive in now, I turn it down. I'll teach them.
Maybe I don't want to hear you. That's what my
Yeah.
husband used to say. Maybe I don't want to hear you.
So, but it's those day-to-day things we do that are medical changes as we get older, eyesight, hearing, and just our composition of our body. But then we got all these wonderful special services that
Yeah.
we have. And I know they're coming out to tell us we got
Well,
5 minutes.
we want to talk
Arnold
about
Road?
Arno Road and the new Vietnam Veterans Group.
Please, let's talk about Arnold Road quickly. So a couple of years ago, Highway Commission really took on ownership of more under Eddie Hood's oversight jurisdiction, does a wonderful job. And so they came up with 5 main roads: Clovercroft, Arnold Road, Linwood Way, Sneed Road. Oh, no. I forgot the other one. They'll come to me. But those main corridors that get people to and from 840 to Highway 96 on Arnold Road's a good example.
And there's a difference, and we've talked about this before. There's county, federal, and state roads.
Correct.
And Eddie Hood only deals with county roads.
Unincorporated roads.
Right.
He cannot work on city
City.
roads. And the city cannot work on the county roads. So it's coordination and making sure that you run a road, if the city's building a new road, we all work together. So the Highway Department, 4-member board they've got, said, okay, well, we're taking ownership of it. And so the first year was $26 million. First phase was $26 million. We got it down to about $26 million, got it down to about $18 million with the Highway Department doing most of that work and contracting out some of the other things. 2 months ago, said we got to jump start it. We got to bring them back down from 8 to 10 years. We need to do them in 6 to 8 years. So we brought it down 2, and so we brought the 6-year window to 4, 4-year down to 2. So Arno Road is the first one. You'll see a lot of work going on Arno Road, intersection expansions in front of Page Middle, Page High School. Lots of work going to occur between there to get that traffic through there. And we're buying right-of-ways so that we can expand that road.
Is that part of the 18 million?
No, we're bringing in the 2-year window down, so
Okay.
it's gonna knock on the door close to 40 million, the first phase. At the same time, we're looking at roads like Sneed Road and Linwood Way and Clovercroft. What can we do working with our cities and county? Sneed Road will be the most costly road the county has ever done in the history when it's finally done. The bridge alone will take an enormous amount.
Yeah.
It's just
You've
like
got
Manhattan
Well,
right
you got
now.
environmental stuff
Yeah.
going on with that.
And it's just, bridges are very, very expensive. Although we've got to buy some right-of-way through there and expand the road, and we're going up and down hills. And
Right.
anytime you do that, it's more costly. So that's what's happening in the unincorporated part of our county. But you'll see over the next 12 months, Arno Road really being a focal point to get people from 840 to Highway 96.
Does any part of that include Goosey Hill?
Yes.
Okay.
So Arno Road, Goosey Hill intersects there. So who pays for it? I'm not talking about that. Highway funds, federal, state. We apply for things with schools. It's all immaterial because at the end of the day, it's got to be done.
Right, right.
You got 2 minutes.
Well, we got to talk about this new group, Vietnam veterans and Vietnam veterans era.
You right?
That they're trying to get a group of Vietnam, and if you went to the meeting last night, if you want to speak to that?
Sure. It's a group of men and women, mostly men, during the Vietnam era, and they're trying to get a chapter started here in Williamson County. I know there's one in Davidson County. I don't know there is one in Murray County and Rutherford County. And so it's for that era, those men and women that served, and particularly the men, they're trying to get this chapter up and get it up and going. So if you're a Vietnam veteran, and I don't have the exact dates, but if you're in that military from around the 62, 63.
I think it's 64
all
to
right,
75.
64 through 75. It's about a 10-year window. Then this organization is beginning to get their feet up underneath in them, and they're wanting membership. You have to have about 2 dozen, maybe 3 dozen people in your chapter, and then you'll be part of the state and part of the national. The fees are reasonable, $50 lifetime membership. And what are you going to do? Have fundraisers, help people that need electrical bills paid, et cetera, et cetera. So it is about helping your community, but more so it's about camaraderie with the men that get together during that period of time.
Yeah, and shoot the breeze.
So if you're interested in that, call my office, 790-5700, or email here, and I'll get you in contact with the people. They're going to meet once a month, and
Yeah, and it's always, the second Thursday or Thursday?
second Thursday of the month. And so 790-5700 to get you to me. And I'm a Vietnam veteran, so I'm a little partial to that. And don't forget,
And so is
Memorial
my
Day service is around the corner.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you next time on County Happenings.